So, Kane Pixel's Backrooms series is full of mysteries, but a big one is what these monsters living in the backrooms are. Well, I've got some ideas. So, Async recovered this corpse which was covered in some sort of mold or fungi. The autopsy of this corpse revealed that there was culture in the body that seemed to be a mutated strain of Hay bacillus. However, Hay bacillus is a type of bacteria, and on Kane Pixel's official website, the monsters are called bacteria. Thus, there is a clear link between the monsters and this corpse. Now, in real life, Hay bacillus is a bacteria found inside the gastrointestinal tract of humans, and the person who performed the autopsy said that the corpse contained what appeared to be a mutated strain of Hay bacillus. Because of this, some people have theorized that the bacteria in the backrooms originally came from a human that got stuck in there, specifically this one. The autopsy report takes place in February 1990, and the first sighting of a monster is after this, in motion detected, which takes place in March 1990. So it is certainly possible that the bacteria monsters originated from this man's corpse. Additionally, when we are introduced to the corpse, this is how the video ends. It is barely noticeable, but these two images quickly flashed on the screen after the corpse was shown, and they seem to be pictures of bacteria. And then we see this image. If we reverse this image, it says, "If anybody, blame him." This could be referring to two things. It could be indicating that the monsters indeed originated from this man's gut bacteria, or it could be referring to something much worse. As we know, this corpse was brought out of the backrooms and an autopsy was performed on it. And the person performing the autopsy said they didn't know where the corpse came from, meaning they don't know about the backrooms, meaning the corpse is now a significant distance away from the Async backrooms opening, and is likely not super secure. So what if a monster grew out of the bacteria in the corpse and wreaked havoc on the world? Anyway, I'm not 100% convinced that the monsters actually originated from the gut bacteria of a corpse in the backrooms, and I will get back to that in a bit, but I do think I know what the monsters actually are. I think the monsters were once human. I think each monster is a mutated person. The bacteria could function as some sort of zombie virus that transforms a person into a monster. The thing is, the gut bacteria found in the corpse seems to be mutated Hay bacillus bacteria, and that type of bacteria has been used in genetic transformation in real life. In general, genetic transformation involves the transfer and incorporation of foreign DNA into a host genome. And this is what genetic transformation in bacteria is specifically. However, what is interesting is that a type of bacteria called Bacillus subtilis is naturally transformable. And guess what? Bacillus subtilis is another name for Hay bacillus, the mutated bacteria found in the corpse. So it makes perfect sense for a mutated form of this bacteria to be able to incorporate itself into humans and transform them into monsters. Anyway, there is a ton of evidence for the monsters having been humans that were transformed. First of all the monsters have a humanoid shape, and a close-up in the first Backrooms video reveals they look to be made of distorted and warped human bones. At least, that is what I think it looks like. Then there is the fact that the monsters sound human and repeat human words, which could be because they were once human. In the video Pitfalls, a scientist named Marvin hears what he thinks is a human yelling for help, and when he gets closer, the monster perfectly mimics human speech. Now, this could just be the monster imitating the sound of a lost human it encountered. However, when Marvin gets even closer, it repeats that phrase again, but then it says this. The monster says the phrase, "one big monologue." Personally, I find it unlikely that someone lost in the backrooms would say that phrase, So I think it is likely the monster was once human and is saying that phrase because it has pieces of memories. Then there's the fact that just before we see that monster, we see this room, and it looks like someone has been living there, which the protagonist himself says. There is a backpack and also shoes, and these objects don't look like they have been generated by the Backrooms, as the Backrooms has generally only generated furniture, and said furniture is usually distorted or out of proportion. So where is the person who was living there? If they are dead, where is their corpse? Well, I think they turned into the monster. Maybe they encountered another monster which infected them, but we see in other videos that there is what appears to be mold or bacteria on the walls of some places, and it certainly looks like it is surrounding that stuff, particularly that bag. So someone could have been living there and gotten infected by the bacteria and then turned into a monster. And then, in found footage too, the female protagonist comes across a car that seems to have been no-clipped in. And we know from this video that cars have no-clipped in before, and there was definitely a person who came with the car because we see a handprint near the car, and then a trail of blood. The trail of blood leads to this dark room, but again, no person or their corpse is present. But you know what is present? A monster. At first it seems dormant, but then it wakes up and chases the protagonist. If this monster was once a person, it would explain why it didn't move or react to the protagonist at first, because the transformation from the person into a monster may have only recently been fully completed. This would also explain why the monster seems connected to the room, as pieces of it or bacteria seem to be growing everywhere, so this must be where the monster first came to be. Anyway, we also have to consider the goal of the monsters. They are very hostile and always chase any humans they see, and in the first Backrooms video, we see that the monster actually grabs the protagonist. What if the monster's goal is to kill humans and then infect their corpses, turning them into more monsters? Now, I mentioned before that even though it is possible that the bacteria originated from the gut bacteria of a person who got lost in the Backrooms, I don't think that is how it got there. But I do think it came from humans, as the bacteria in the corpse seems to be a mutated type of bacteria which can be found in humans. Let me explain my thinking. In the video overflow, we see the beginnings of the experiment that had the goal of creating a doorway between the normal world and the Backrooms. In this video, after the experiment overloads, we see the sky mirror itself. Then, in this video, we also see the world mirror itself and split. I think the experiment that was performed, the experiment that created a link between the real world and the Backrooms, caused part of the normal world to be imprinted on the Backrooms dimension. Maybe the Backrooms used to be an empty dimension, or maybe there was something else there. But whatever it used to look like must have been overwritten. These mirror images of the real world must have merged with the Backrooms dimension. This would explain why the Backrooms has what appears to be man-made structures and furniture within it. The biggest piece of evidence for this idea is the video home_27647.mov. In this video, there is a house that looks similar to some of the rooms in found footage too. However, this painting is the exact same painting that was in the rooms in found footage too. So, this place in the Backrooms is clearly a copy of this house in the real world. Thus, I think parts of the real world were definitely copied and imprinted onto the Backrooms dimension. And that is what was happening in these scenes. So, the world was copied, at least partially, and that mirror copy was imprinted onto the Backrooms dimension. But part of those mirror copies would have included people. And we do see that part of this copy included cars, and those cars would have had people in them. I think that when the mirror image of the world was imprinted onto the Backrooms dimension, it tried to imprint the people but couldn't do it, and instead just copied over the gut bacteria. And we know that the Backrooms didn't copy the real world correctly, as lots of things are warped and distorted, like these signs and these chairs. So, this would explain why the bacteria is mutated and can infect people, causing them to become monsters. The bacteria is warped just like the signs and furniture. So, thanks for watching. I quickly want to mention that I have a shop where I sell cute pins and keychains. Some of my designs include the kiwi, the ice cream cat, and the donut cat, and I also have a Journey to the West collection with pins and keychains. The link to my shop is in the description. Anyway, feel free to like and subscribe.